Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to this month's Illuminated Conversation. These are a series of conversations we hold here at the Lumen Group, really on topics that are top of mind or we're hearing from clients that we want to share and pass on to other people. And today is really going to be an opportunity for us to not only talk about microstrategies, ways that we can manage energy and stress in our work environments, but to also get an opportunity to practice them. So if you've watched or been a part of our Illuminated Conversations in the past, you know it's usually a facilitated conversation around a specific topic where we insert some microstrategies as part of that. But today we're really going to shift that format a bit where I'll talk briefly about what microstrategies are, how that helps support our nervous system regulation in the workplace. But then we're going to get an opportunity to practice two that are more on the kind of calming, regulating side of the house, and then two that are more energizing. So perhaps as you're finishing lunch here, as it's noon Central Time, ways that you can get back into your work afternoon with some good focus and energy and attention to get to the things you need before maybe popping off for the weekend. So I'm Dr. Emily Hedberg. I'm a senior consultant here with the Lumen Group, and I'm joined today by colleagues, Dr. Megan Broger, our founder and president, and Donnie Hobbs, who is also a senior consultant. Also, a shout out to Danielle Simmons, who makes all of these Illuminated Conversations possible, both in terms of the lead up as well as the closeout, so that we can share these in different ways through our LinkedIn and YouTube channels. So at the Lumen Group, we believe a lot in bringing the science of people to work. And when we say science, we really draw from psychology, neuroscience, biology, to really think about the complexities of the humans in the workplace and how best we can support them. One of the areas that we're really passionate about is our centered leadership model. Really, this indication that our nervous system, which is our operating system, plays a really big role in us being able to be really intentional, purposeful, and responsive in the way that we show up as leaders. And that requires us to be centered at the forefront. Being center allows us to be regulated from a nervous system standpoint, but it also allows us to connect with that important part of our brain, that frontal lobe, which allows us to be more effective, intentional in how we're strategizing, critically thinking, analyzing situations, but also plays a large role in how we connect, how we communicate effectively, and ultimately how we contribute to positive workplace environments. Knowing that it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, we're really bringing that connection to the workplace. And the way in which we show up has a ripple effect of the people that are surrounded. And we like to think about it hopefully in a way that we can be that positive ripple effect into our workplace ecosystem. But we can all probably think about, people or environments we've been a part of where that's not always the case. So as we think about bringing that mental health awareness, really that connection to being centered, being present as a leader has a big impact on that. We also spend a lot of time with leaders and teams that we support, understanding this idea of, well, what the heck does it mean to be centered or regulated? And we really talk about it in terms of being in range or centered. What allows me to be able to access my skills, knowledge, abilities, so that we can be more intentional and have the impact we want to have in the conversations, the relationships, and the ecosystems we're part of. And we know that workplace stress, other interactions can cause us to get perhaps out of range a bit or off center. And that's to be expected. But the conversation today, we're going to really talk about how we can move back to in range and center when perhaps we encounter situations where we get a little out of range. So as an example, we can think about maybe we're starting our day where we feel really good and centered. Maybe we had a great night of sleep. Our kiddo actually listened and followed directions, and so school drop-off was incredible. But then we realize as we've left the house, we forgot something we needed for an in-person meeting that we were getting ready to attend. And now that I'm late getting to that meeting, of course, traffic's going to be fun. It's construction season here in Minnesota, so things are going to be a bit slower. So as you're rushing and trying not to be impatient with the slower drivers in front of you, this continues to escalate and escalate. If, on the other hand, we can think about that scenario in a 2.0 version, again, we start the day calm centered, a great night of sleep, great school drop off. Quickly realized, oh shoot, I forgot the thing I needed to bring to this in-person meeting. Just gonna take a nice sigh, a nice deep breath. It'll be okay, which helps me to get back to regulated and a bit more centered. Now I encounter that construction traffic in a car that's going below the posted speed limit. And again, though my natural tendency is going to be like, and less curious than I'd like to be, this is an opportunity. How can I maybe shift my attitude or perspective and use this as an opportunity to practice pause and patience, bringing me back a little bit closer to center? So again, the goal is not that we're always calm, regulated beings, but to notice those moments that we get off center and to think about what are some of the tools or strategies within our day, within our workday that can help us to get back to that place that allows us to be more purposeful and intentional. So with that, we're going to step into some different micro strategies that you can use. As I mentioned, we'll spend some time talking about more calming, regulating strategies, and then some of those strategies that can help be more energizing or activating. And we'll talk a little bit about the what behind the strategy. We'll guide you through the practice, and then we'll share a little bit about possible applications when you might want to think about or try using these skills in the workplace. So with that, Donnie's going to kick us off with our first micro strategy.
Thank you, Emily. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to be here today to share some different types of strategies. It's always good to have a variety of things to choose from because different things will work a little better for some than others. So just to start out, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite techniques for recentering, and it's a client favorite as well because it's very versatile, and it's a technique that comes from a practice called emotional freedom technique, or EFT. And this is going to be a very abbreviated version of the practice, but in shortening it up, it's something that you can use anywhere, and there are a couple different ways to use it. I'll show you both ways, but essentially what we're doing is we're going to be using acupressure points. And today we're just going to use one acupressure point that you can either tap on, and I'll demonstrate this. So this is called the karate chop point on the side of the hand. And so we're going to tap like this, and that's an acupressure point that is going to kind of loosen up some of the energy that we're holding tightly in our body. And what we want to do with that is pair it with a narrative. And the combination of the two really allows some of that negative energy or some of that stuck energy to really start to release. And it happens very quickly. And I'm going to give you a phrase that you can use while you tap. And it's nice, like I said, it's very versatile because you can plug in whatever is going on for you in that moment. For example, going back to Emily's example of being stuck in traffic, we could plug that into the phrase that I'll give you. But a lot of folks that I work with have a specific concern that is frequently coming up. So we're going to use that one for the practice, but I'll walk you through the phrase with the traffic example. So we'll start by just tapping on the karate chop point of the hand. And what we'll say is, even though, and then this is where you fill in whatever stressor you're experiencing. So even though I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going to be late, I deeply and completely accept myself. So even though I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going to be late, I deeply and completely accept myself. So what this does in that moment is it works with that tension that's really building up, because as soon as we, as soon as we see the brake lights, as soon as things start to slow down, all of our tension and energy starts to ramp up because we get this narrative going in our head around, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my work or keto pickup or whatever it is you're off to? So the one that is very frequently used when I'm working with the clients, and I use this myself, is this one. So I'll walk you through it. If you want to, go ahead and bring your hand up and tap on the side of that hand on the karate chop point. If it feels okay, you can close your eyes and or take a soft gaze, or feel free to keep your eyes open too if that feels right. But we're going to walk through that same phrase. And so the phrase is, even though blank, I deeply and completely accept myself. So I'll walk us through this one. So even though I feel completely overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Keep tapping. Even though I feel completely overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. And one more time. Even though I feel completely overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. And whenever you're ready, you can stop tapping. And I don't know what that was like. For me, I felt a shift, a downshift in my system. This is new. This is a technique that you're just still kind of learning. So there might have been a higher level of focus there. But if you practice this using that phrase, even though, fill in the blank, I deeply and completely accept myself, you can use it with anything. Try it out, practice it throughout the day, and see if you notice any shifts in the system. And that is centering strategy number 1, EFT.
That was great, Donnie. It probably took me to until the third iteration to feel that shift.
Mm, hmm.
And I can still even feel the tingling in my hand, which I don't know, maybe more focused or attentive too.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'll guide us through strategy number 2. And this is called a somatic visual reset and can be a really great exercise. Megan and I did a bunch of facilitating in the last couple of weeks in a virtual setting. So taking these learning experiences out of in person to virtual, which I'm sure you can all appreciate just some of the challenges with that. But in a hybrid world, we spend a lot of time focused in on our computer. And so this one gently stimulates the brain attention, our orientation system, by shifting our gaze without actually physically moving our head. And what this can do is helps to wake up our brain, but it also allows us to pay attention to new stimuli in our visual environment, which can help us to feel more maybe kind of awake, aware, and even re-regulate some of that attention. So especially if you've been on maybe back-to-back Zoom calls or virtual meetings, can be a really great way to shift that. This can also be really helpful when we think of that idea of where our focus is really narrow. I know people kind of talk about Zoom fatigue, or we get kind of tunnel vision. And that can also be linked to hypervigilance. So our nervous system can take that as a sign of I need to be kind of on guard, or kind of ready to fight and flight. And so this exercise is really meant to engage more of our parasympathetic nervous system, that rest, relax, digest side of it, which can really disrupt some of that zoning out or that tendency to be like, yeah, I've been sitting in this meeting, but it's not really processing. So this can be really helpful when you find maybe your attention is dipping, maybe that kind of post-lunch situation, or really helpful between meeting transitions. So we're going to take a moment to reset and refocus using our eyes. So I'm going to invite you to sit. Also, if you want to, you can also feel free to stand if that feels comfortable. But whether you're standing or sitting, making sure that your feet are firmly on the ground, the floor beneath you, and that your head is neutral. Without moving your head, I want you to slowly shift your gaze to the far left. So shift that gaze to the far left and just notice what's there. I'm going to hold for just a few seconds. And now shift your gaze to the far right. Again, without physically moving your head, just go ahead and shift that gaze to the far right, taking in your surroundings. What you notice might be new or different. Now shift your gaze upward. Again, just moving your eyes only. And take a moment to just breathe here. Nice slow inhale in and a full exhale out. And then go ahead and find a neutral gaze with your eye. And just take a moment to reflect a bit on what you noticed. Some people will report feeling maybe that deeper breath, maybe more awareness, even finding maybe a shift in your mood. Just take a moment to reflect on what you noticed. Can also be common in doing this exercise, as Megan has pointed out to me in the past, to even start to yawn. Can be really a common experience. So with this exercise can be really helpful at the beginning before stepping into a meeting as a way to kind of ground, awaken, get that awareness in, but to also think about as you've been into back-to-back meetings or points of transition, just to that opportunity to reset so that you can be really focused and engaged in the activity you're doing.
Thank you, Emily. I really enjoy that strategy, and it's so interesting how kind of biologically based it is. If you look at animals in the wild, when they're looking around, it's when they feel safe, whether or not they're moving their head or just kind of moving their gaze as we just did. When they're startled by something, they're usually, they're either still like, don't notice me, or they're taken off, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of that fight, flight, or freeze. So it's interesting just to observe how other animals do this in nature too, and it sends those same signals to the body, like, yeah, you can look around, you can check it out, you're safe,
We're okay. You're
we're
safe
okay.
here.
Yeah.
What's also fascinating to me every time I do that activity is I notice something different in my office.
Mm,
And I wonder in other people's workspaces, do you notice something different than what you typically like? My view is typically pretty restricted.
yeah. I noticed over here a pen that I thought my son had stolen, but it's actually on this stack of notebooks over here. So yes, that's helpful. It's great. Awesome. Thank you. Well, I think I'm up for the next one, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Great. So I am going to introduce us to another regulation strategy from the Heart Math Institute. And the Heart Math Institute is a US-based research and educational organization. They were founded in the early 90s, and they really focus on the connection between the heart, the brain, and emotions, and how the connection between those three really influences a variety of different forms of health, as well as performance and kind of a felt sense of well-being. And so there's a variety of different strategies that the Heart Math Institute shares to help kind of recognize and regulate kind of our emotional physiology, the heart-brain interaction, and how that can impact just, again, kind of our physiology, how we learn, how we respond, how we react to things. And we became really interested in some of the Heart Math techniques because their work is supported by peer-reviewed studies in neuroscience, psychology, and even cardiology. And part of that is because a lot of contemporary science shows that the quality of our of our feelings and the emotion that we experience each moment is really rooted in an underlying kind of state of a physiological process or response. So whether or not we are actually aware that we're experiencing an emotion, our body is responding to that. And so these strategies, and the one that I'm going to talk about today, is a really great way of helping to intentionally self-regulate an emotional response and help to kind of decompress from maybe an activating event, or even the experience of an emotion or kind of an energy that we feel stuck in, and that's not serving us, to be able to move forward from that. So the strategy is called the attitude breathing technique. And the idea is that attitudes, like emotions, they can either be kind of energy depleting or energy renewing. And so what this technique helps us to do is to replace an energy or an emotion that feels draining with one that feels healthier, more positive, or more energizing. And so this can be used at a time when you are feeling one of those emotions that you would like to kind of move away from. So if you're not feeling any one of those now, to practice this, you could bring to mind a situation where you felt an emotion that was draining, or an attitude or a mindset that did not feel helpful. So, for example, yesterday, Donnie and I had an exciting travel experience. And so I won't speak for Donnie, but there was a point at which I felt extremely frustrated with our circumstances. And while that feeling of frustration was valid, if you will, feelings are feelings, we don't necessarily need to, to prove them. But it also wasn't helpful in that moment, when what we needed to do is to be able to problem solve. And when our emotional brain takes over, then we lose this good thinking part of our brain and access to all that creativity and strategy and problem solving that we need. So that's the example that I'm going to refer back to. I'm going to think about that moment of frustration. And then what you want to do is identify a replacement attitude or emotion. So rather than feeling that frustration or kind of staying in that frustration, I wanted to adopt a feeling of appreciation for the person at the desk who is helping us figure out a way forward. And so I'm going to just invite you to bring to mind that emotion, that mindset that was draining or unhelpful, and then try to identify what is a replacement attitude or feeling in that circumstance. Some common ones are, if you're feeling stress, a replacement could be breathing in calm or ease. If you're feeling angry or upset or mad, you could try to bring in cooling energy or a sense of appreciation for something. So sometimes the initial emotion is easier to recognize than the replacement emotion, but bring that situation to mind. So again, I'm going to try to recognize frustration and replace it with appreciation. And what you're going to do, again, if you're comfortable, you can take a soft gaze or close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to breathe in and focus your attention really in the area of your heart or your chest, and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of that heart or chest area, and try breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. You might try an inhale for 5 seconds and a slow exhale for 5 seconds. That if that pace feels right for you, that's great. If it's too fast or too slow, let your body drive you, but try to slow your breathing down and breathe in a little slower and a little more deeply than you were before. And as you do that, you're going to really try to visualize breathing in that new attitude or that new emotion. So as I inhale, I'm going to breathe in that feeling of appreciation. Then I'm going to exhale and release. Inhale, breathing in that feeling of appreciation. And exhaling, letting that frustration go. And you can do that a couple of more times as you inhale, breathing in that feeling you are inviting, that mindset you are inviting. And as you breathe out, releasing the one that you want to let go of. And sometimes this takes just one round of breathing, and for other really, really stuck emotions or reactions, it might take a few rounds. But what this is doing is helping our brain, our heart, and our emotions become realigned and calming our nervous systems and giving us really a sense of control. We don't have to believe every thought that we feel, and we don't have to act on every emotion that we have. So this is giving us an opportunity to reset and step forward in a different way. So that
was
is
wonderful,
attitude
Megan.
breathing.
Love it.
Yeah, I like that. And I think you brought up a really good point too, Megan, in that, you can do it for a couple of rounds and see how it goes. And sometimes that's enough. But same with EFT, or I think probably the visualization exercise, if a little was good, you can keep going.
Yeah.
And you can kind of double down on the impact. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's a great point, Donnie. When we think about some of these micro strategies, we're demonstrating them in what could be a minute or less, 2 minutes or less. But to know that we can always expand on that as well. I'm also dropping into the chat, and for those who are watching the recording, we'll make sure that's tagged as well. Megan mentioned this idea of things that might be energy giving and situations that might be more energy draining. So this is some thought leadership piece that we had published recently in Training Industry Magazine. So it gets in a little bit more to that idea of energy management and how we can use micro strategies. So Donnie, you're going to close us out with our fourth and final strategy and to maybe demonstrate how we can do that in 1 minute or less.
Perfect. This is a 1 minute exercise. We can even shave it down and you can practice this on your own. So this is an energizing practice, and it's really about regulating and rebalancing the system. So as we go through our workday and we're experiencing stress, a lot of times that combination of oxygen and carbon dioxide can get thrown off, and it is a very delicate balance. We need a good balance of both. And so first thing that we do is we just check in. I know it's 12:29, so we're going to rattle through this. So we're going to check in when we start to feel tired, and just notice, how are we breathing? Notice your breath. And when we shift our attention to the breath seems to expand a bit. So what this practice is about, it is inhaling through the nose, 3 sharp, even inhales to fill up the lungs, and then a big exhale through the mouth. So 3 sharp, even inhales like this. And we're going to do that for 30 seconds and come back. Now, if you're really fatigued, or if this is a new practice for you, just notice if you start to feel dizzy, you can pause, or you can make the inhales a little more shallow, or slow the breathing down. Just keep an eye on that. And let's do it for 30 seconds, and we'll come back and close out. 3 sharp, even inhales. Big exhale. And even after 3 or 4 breaths, I start to notice my body temperature starting to rise up. Things are becoming a little bit more just kind of a sense of vibration and energy starting to rise through. Just keep going as long as it feels comfortable. Maybe take 2 more. And that practice can wrap up. It can be very brief, maybe 10 seconds. It can be 1 round. You can go a minute, you can go 2 minutes, whatever feels right. And then just notice any sensations in the body once you return to normal breathing. And it's a great way to just rebalance the system and come back to that practice as often as you'd like. I like to do it often throughout the day. Seems to balance everything out and leave me with more energy at the end of the day.
That was great, Donnie. My brain is feeling a little bit like fluttered.
Ah. Awesome.
Oxygen is a great thing. Well, as we close out today's session, thanks for sharing some of these wonderful practices. As Megan and Donnie have highlighted, these small shifts can really add up throughout the course of the day. I know we also get into the practice of, I have on my calendar little notifications to pop up throughout the day just as a reminder to practice some of these things. And as Donnie was saying, even checking in throughout the course of the day can be helpful. Do I need something that's going to be a little bit more calming, relaxing, or do I need something like we just did? Need a little bit of that energy boost as I step into my afternoon commitments. If you scan this QR code, this will bring you to another free resource of 4 different strategies and also ways that you can stay connected with us. But I would like to leave you with and encourage you to drop this into the chat for those that are joining live. But what's one MicroStrategy that you're going to commit to doing throughout your next work week? And then check in with yourself throughout the week, maybe Friday afternoon. What did you notice as you maintained some of those commitments, as you've practiced some of these MicroStrategies in your week? Again, those small shifts can really add up, help us to be more regulated and centered as leaders, and can have a big impact on the teams and the ecosystems that we're a part of. So thank you all for joining us here today, and we hope to see you again at a future Illuminated Conversation session. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.